You can see the slides, sir.
Yes, madam.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Welcome back to all the participants. Good afternoon. So now we are going to discuss. Morning we have seen the consensus algorithms, where we have discussed the various consensus algorithms, and now we are going to see the blockchain security. How much secure the blockchain exactly is. That we are going to discuss in today's session. Okay. So before starting about the security in blockchain, first question I would like to ask is why the blockchain has emerged. Why the blockchain has emerged? To overcome some of the problems of network security. But when we say that the hash function or the algorithms what we are incorporating in order to develop blockchain security, so it's like bits and parts. From the network security we have taken and we have combined and we have just developed it and named it as one part. That's it. Over here only plus point is like the we have read the cipher text, right? Ciphers in the network security. In same way we are just over here block ciphers and stream ciphers, right? So in that way we are over here the blockchain, as we are following the block ciphers concept only over here. We are maintaining a chain, continuous chain till it reaches to the network, whether it is a public or private.
Sir, it's audible, right?
Yeah, it is audible, but there is nothing. I'm not seeing any change in the screen. JSS Academy of Technical Education. That's what I'm seeing.
No, but I have shared the screen.
Is it? Whether
Yes,
I need to
sir.
sign off? Whether I need to sign off and sign on?
But my voice is audible, right?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Your screen shows blockchain security, Dr. Bhavna.
That's it. That's it. Yeah, that's what. And I have discussed about the how blockchain security has emerged. That was audible, right?
Yes.
Okay, then I'll continue. Yeah. Then I'll just continue. Okay, thank you. So when we are discussing about block ciphers or stream ciphers, the concept was taken from there, and they have included a hash function over there so that it can be a chain kind of structure, and we are just using the hashing function of the previous chain, and same thing similar to block ciphers. IV whatever we are going to use over here, we have a genesis block, and say a similar fashion we are just moving towards the next level until unless we reach the destination, right? So in the same fashion, the slight changes they have done, and they have developed the concept called as blockchain. So whereas when they have thought about the blockchain, they have implemented this blockchain, and it has been proved for some application that it works very well. Okay, so when it has been proved that it works very well, people were so happy, and they started dumping this blockchain technology into each and every part of application. Whether it is useful, whether it is not useful, they are least bothered. So for the database, in order to store the data, there also they started using the blockchain technology. So it is like, something which has come and we have to take it. That's it. Whether there is a need or there is no need, we are least bothered. First, we need to analyze whether the current existing technologies can solve the problem or not. If it is not solving the problem, then we have to move towards the next level of the technology which has come, and what kind of plus are there and what kind of minus are there, whether those plus and minus are good enough for the application which we are developing, that we need to think and we need to proceed. That is a way to go ahead. Over here, when the technology has been improved and technology has been adopted by many applications, still they started facing the cyber security problems. So today we are going to discuss various cyber security problems which are being inherent in the blockchain itself. So the technology does not remove the inherent cyber security risk. This is what I have discussed till now. So many of the risk involve the human element. So the cybersecurity remains vital to protecting the network and participating the organization from cyber threats, hackers, vulnerabilities, and so on and so forth, which is very common even in blockchain networks. So there is no need for us to have the knowledge about blockchain network. If there is some communication which is happening in the network, that is enough for the attacker to enter into that network and capture that particular information, right? Whether it is a blockchain, whether it is a cyber security, whether it is a network communication, that's enough. Network communication is more than enough to which leads to the network security issues. So this is how it's the knowledge what is having the attacker is more than enough to breach into the system. So the cybersecurity standards and guidance remain highly relevant for ensuring the security of the systems, but although they provide the solutions, there are some security issues which still exist. We all know. Still we use the WhatsApp, still we use another app, so on, so forth. Although we know that our information have been leaked, our information is getting leaked to some other person. Still we use, right? Although we say that, okay, nowadays WhatsApp has gone, some Signal app, something is coming forward. But even then, whatever it is coming into the network, whether we are stopping ourselves to communicate, until unless we are communicating, until unless we are using it, even the attacks will follow us. It's the same thing. Only thing is how much protection we are getting, how much we are not getting, that is much more important. If you check out that, even WhatsApp is safe, even Facebook is safe. Only thing is we should understand how much we should share the information, how much we should not share the information. Similarly with the blockchain technology, where we should use the blockchain technology, where we should not use the blockchain technology, that analysis is much more important than blindly using the blockchain technology for anything else in the network. Okay, existing standards and guidance provide a strong foundation for protecting the blockchain networks from the cyber attacks. So the NIST of cybersecurity has expressly states that not a one size fits all approach to the cybersecurity risk, because organizations will continue to have a unique risk from one to the other. So they vary, and how they implement the practices in the framework will also vary. Their organization, their architecture, their way of maintaining the databases, their way of handling the systems, everything matters over here. Okay, so even though the framework is not designed for the blockchain technology specifically, the standards are broad enough to cover the blockchain technology, help the institutions to develop the policies and process for the identification of the risk which affects the blockchain technology. So where we require security and what kind of security we require. So these are the various parts where we really require security. Node level security, each and every node which is going to enter into the network, yeah, they need to authenticate, they need to authorize themselves, they need to agree for the consensus mechanisms. Everything is important, right? So node level security is required. Bugs, when we are writing a software and when it is a poorly written contracts with respect to Bitcoin smart contracts, when you are writing a software or a program and it is poorly written and it is vulnerable to the attacks, then we require security at that particular level. Secure contracts, if we write, then there won't be any attacks to that particular service, right? Next, if we have dishonest miner or traitor, then also we require security. Some kind of we should able to hold a stick so that people all the nodes in the network will work properly, right? So in that way, so some agreements or some proofs, some stakes, something, as we have discussed in the morning session, I have discussed about the consensus algorithms in detail, right? So in that way, some things or some rules and regulations has to be written so that the dishonest miners will also become a honest miner in the network. up to at least up to 40 to 50%, not 100%, right? So in that way, this is where we require the security. Next, if someone is going to misuse the consensus protocol, there we require security. Network vulnerabilities. What are the various network vulnerabilities that we are going to see in the coming slides? So that we will cover off various network vulnerabilities, not one or two. So next comes the application vulnerability. Whatever the application you are going to develop, web application or Android application or whatever application which is based on blockchain security, it is also vulnerable for phishing attacks, malware attacks, anything, whichever we develop, right? So there we require security. So these are the various levels where we require security in order to protect the blockchain. That is node level security. Software, when we are going to write a contract program, there we require security. Dishonest miners are existing in the network, so we require security in order to make them as a honest miners. Then misuse, we should track that no one misuses the consensus protocol. Then the network vulnerabilities and the application vulnerabilities. Okay, so these are the considerations we need to consider for the blockchain technology. So first one comes the network security. Yes, all the communication channels whatever we are using and the network in the network, they all need to be secured, right? Next comes the configuration of cryptographic protocols or the algorithms. Configuration of the security cryptographic protocols. When we are using the network security protocols into the blockchain protocols, then obviously there are millions of trillions of attacks which can happen. So even the attackers in the network, they know how to break this particular network security protocol. So they know very well. So whether you are using in blockchain technology, whether you are using in some XYZ place, they are least bothered. Once they see that okay, this kind of encryption algorithm has been used, that's enough for them to break the code. Okay, next comes the key management and security management. How to manage the keys, public and private keys, hash functions. So where to arrange them, where to manage them, how to do all these things. Okay, that is also much more important. Security management. Okay, we are saying that keys have been used by the key management system, that this and all, wherever we are keeping it, the ledgers, everything has been stored in one database. Who is going to have security management? How to identify, how to maintain that in the network, complete network, whether it is for the system to system or whether it is only end system or end to end system or only in the network level. So where to manage the security, that is also required. Node availability and trust management. Yes, nodes should be available in the network. So in order to perform the transactions, nodes are required. So that we require. Trust management. Yes, we require security at that particular level. So the platform layer security concerns, that anyways we are layer wise we are going to study from the next slide, which is almost similar to your network security which we have seen in the previous slide. So next comes the phishing attack. Phishing attack on the application layer, whether it is server side or the client side. So first one comes the cyber and network based attacks. So as we all know that blockchain technologies are immutable, right? This is true only for the transactions which have been included in a published block. What about the unpublished block? They are vulnerable. They are very open for the others to mutable. They become mutable for the unpublished information. Transactions not yet been included in, so same thing, are vulnerable to several types of attacks. Networks have the transactional timestamps, spoofing time, and adjusting the clock of a member in an order to have a positive or negative effects on a particular transaction. So we need to take care of the time, ordering time also, which is present, because if the communication of the time has been changed, then that's more than enough. It won't deliver the information within the specified time. That also will lead to attack. That is also called an attack. Denial of service attacks. Yes, wherever we store the information, denial of service attacks are possible. So in the morning session, when we have seen the client to the server in the RIPL, uh, as well as in the RIPL, we have seen as well as the POS, I think, not in POS, in some other concept where we are send the message X and we got the reply Y. So in that concept also, wherever you see there is a possibility of DOS attacks. Instead of one message, if continuously the server is made busy, then what about the information which has been stored, and what about the transactions that need to be finished within the specified time? That is also a question mark, right? So blockchain networks and their applications are not immune to the malicious actors, but who can conduct the network scanning and reconnaissance to discover and exploit the vulnerabilities. But launch the zero-day attacks. So once they launch the zero-day attacks, then immediately the whole network will be into zero crash. So when we are trying to deploy the blockchain based services, they have not considered the known vulnerabilities also. So that which has played a part for the weaknesses. Later they started working on those weaknesses, and they started saying that okay, this website or these applications are being attacked in day-to-day life. That is the worst part which has been happening. So malicious users, yes, they exist in the network. So when the blockchain network enforces the transaction rules and specifications, it cannot enforce the user to be on the code of conduct. It can just enforce the transaction rules and the specific, but it cannot enforce the user to follow those particular. The problematic is permissionless blockchain networks. The main problem arises with the malicious users in the network is the permissionless blockchains, where the users will enter into the network just like that, and they try to go ahead without any consideration. They'll involve in one particular transaction, they will gain the information, and they will leave the network. Okay. So users are synonymous, and there are not a one-to-one mapping between the blockchain network user identifiers. So even over here, if you have read the starting properties of the blockchain, you might be knowing that there are millions of addresses which are available, and for each and every transaction they use a different user ID, right? In that way, it is very difficult to identify the users who have used the network IDs. Only one user can use 10 to 20 IDs at once for the transactions. For 20 transactions, you can use 20 different IDs. So that makes a difficulty in identifying the information. Okay. Next, the permissionless blockchain networks often provide a reward. So permissionless blockchains will motivate the users to act very fairly in the network, but still they choose to act as a malicious person so that they will get the more rewards from the network. Okay, from the attackers, if someone is ready to pay, if they say that you give me this kind of information, I'm ready to pay the amount. If the user is a genuine one and he is willing to uh, proceed with that, then he will deny. No, I want to get some rewards and I want to be in the network and I want to go with the proof of stake or some other intention may be wrong or right, we don't know, but it will make them to do some wrong things. Then they will become the malicious users in the network. The largest problem for the malicious users is getting the enough power to which may cause the damage. So this is this last statement which is with respect to the stake in the system. Okay, so the large enough malicious influence is collusion is created, malicious mining actions will start. They start ignoring the transactions of certain users. They start creating an altered chain in secret. Then they start
Ma'am, you're not audible. Hello. Madam, you are not audible.
Hello.
Yeah, now yes, ma'am.
So I'm audible, right, sir?
Yeah, now yes.
Okay. Is the PPT visible?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay then. Yeah. So this is how the malicious actions will take place once they gain the information. So next comes the network level threats and smart contract threats, which are in the blockchain with respect to the blockchain. So DDoS attack is the first one, which is in the highest possibility with the help of the external resources, contracts, and underpriced operations. Transaction malleability attack. Anyways, this some of the attacks which we are discussing over here, we will discuss in detail in the coming slide also. Some we don't, some we will discuss. Okay. Eclipse attack, refund attack, balance attacks, delay routing attack, partition routing attack, time jacking attack, transaction malleability attack. So punitive and feather forking attack. Out of all these things, many of them we are going to see in detail in the coming slides. So next comes the smart contract threats, that is vulnerabilities in contract source code, EVM bytecode in blockchain, Eclipse attack on the smart contract blockchain, low level attacks. So first is the no trust. So this is a common misinterpretation that people hear, that there is no need of trusted third party. So blockchain, do you really think that it is a trustless environment? And we don't want any third party. To be frank, we require a third party. And we all depend on that third party. The election procedure which you are opting in the network in order to agree to a consensus mechanism, that itself is a trusted party in the network. So that will start issuing the hash functions, that will start issuing the proper functions which are going to happen in the network. Okay. So there is no trusted third party certifying transactions in the permissionless transaction networks. So when we say that, there is a great deal of trust needed to work within the blockchain network. So when we are saying that administrator requires some different authorities, some other person requires some other authorities, that this and all the things where we are saying that we are supposed to grant the permission to the users in terms of admissions and the permissions, then obviously we first thing is, who is going to trust us? We are saying that we need to have some admission process, some permission process, the blocks, whoever want to enter into the network, nodes are entering just like that. But there should be some trusted technology or some trusted algorithm where it should gain some information and it should able to perform properly with the network. Okay. So in order to have the trust in the network, there is trust in the cryptographic technologies which are being used. That is the cryptographic algorithms or the implementations which have the flaws. The same will be carried with the blockchain also. There is a trust in the correct and bug-free operation for the smart contracts, which might have the unintended loopholes and the flaws. There is a trust in the developers of the software to produce the software that is as bug-free as possible. Because as we are using the network security concepts and the same software, we cannot assure that that is a trust-free, bug-free software. So we need to have the we are thinking that who are going to develop this particular software, they are the trustable persons, right? So but still errors or bugs will exist. There is a trust that most users in the blockchain are not colluding in secret, but to be frank, people can have a single group or the individuals can control more than 50% of the block creation power, so that they can have their own, once the known nodes in the network, they can start creating their own block, right? So then they will have a complete their own set of information and they will try to store the secret information. However, the obtaining the necessary computational power is prohibitively expensive. So computational power, obviously it is expensive, but still there is no trust concept which is existing in the blockchain. So for blockchain, that is one of the reason where the financial institutions are also taken a back step to adopt the blockchain. Okay. So for blockchain network users not running a full node, there is a trust that nodes are accepting and processing the transactions fairly. So these are the all assumptions where we have to say that we are trusting them in the network. So public key infrastructure and identity. When you hear this word, blockchain technology will incorporate a public key infrastructure. Some people immediately believe it that it supports the identity, but it is not the case. Why means the relationship between the key private one-to-one relation of the private key pairs of the users is not the same as one-to-one relation with the public key pairs. So digital signatures are often used to provide the identity of the cybersecurity world, but this will lead to the confusion for the potential applications of a blockchain, where it won't able to decide whether this is a normal application or whether it is a blockchain application, because the concept which we are adopting is a very simple concept, right? So it will lead to a confusion of the potential applications of the blockchain, whether the application has really the strength to uh, give a positive result. That will be the confusion when we are using the digital signature and public key infrastructure. So blockchain transaction signatures verification process links the transactions to the owners of the private keys, but provides no facility for associating the real world identities. So in some of the cases, it is possible to connect the real world identities with the private keys, but these connections are made through processors which are outside and not explicitly supported by the blockchain. So we are saying that the entities, the private keys, public keys, which we are using, are connected together in the network and they have been supported by the blockchain. But I mean, we are using them in the blockchain, but to be frank, they are the explicit nodes in the network which have been taken from the network security concepts. So a law enforcement agency could request the records from the exchange that what the specific individuals have performed. The another example which we can consider is individual posting the cryptocurrency addresses on their personal website. So that will completely lead to the identity, real world identity. So that's the reason people say that you should not disclose the keys and you should keep them very, very safe. Recently, there is one newspaper we have read that one person has lost some, like he bought the bitcoins and after the 8 guesses, Now only he is left out with 2 guesses. If he guessed wrong, then the whole millions of amount will be 0. Whatever he has gained, it will be 0. So there is a possibility that we will lose that identity of our, that these passwords of our blockchains. So the use of blockchain in the identity management requires the distributed ledger component. It is important to understand the typical blockchain implementations which have not been designed to serve the standalone identity management. So this is the one where you can decide, based on this diagram, you can decide whether your application really requires the blockchain or whether it is not required. So do you need a shared consistent data store? If yes, then you are going to move to the next level so that you can decide, does more than one entity need the contributed data? Yes, that is distributed one. Distributed entities are there, then yes, data records once written are never been updated or deleted. If yes, then you will go to the next level. So all these verifications once you do, then only we can say that we require the blockchain for the use case which we are going to develop, or else there are some alternatives which are already present in the network or in the network security domain, where you can just adopt and you can create your applications in that particular format only. So we are going to discuss about the platform layer wise security concerns. First one is the Sybil attack. So this is how the Sybil attack will happen. So which will inherit the DDoS attack also. So the attacker will create the multiple entries, and then he will take over the control of the network. He will forward the attacker's block so that faster than the genuine user's block, so that he will able to create a formation and get the information from the nodes. Okay, so this will inherent see the DDoS attack inherent from the Sybil attack. This will lead to the DDoS attack also. Continuously you are sending an information to all the nodes which are present in the network to fetch the information and transfer it to the client, then obviously that will lead to the DDoS attack. Unnecessarily you're just blocking the network and not allowing the other nodes to perform the other transactions by solving the puzzles. So it has been noticed in 2017 that the DDoS attacks have been increased by 75% in the quarter 3. Okay, so this is how it has been noticed. So this is the DDoS attacks which are hard to execute on the blockchain, but they are possible. You really so hard to hackers will consuming all the processing used. Our hobby is not to resources happens and that they will be using they can be because it's of Mango restore the services
Ma'am, your voice is breaking. Hello.
Sir?
Your voice was breaking.
Okay.
Yeah, now it's
Maybe
fine. Now
maybe
it's
there
fine.
is some network issue. I
Yes,
don't
yes.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
now it's fine, ma'am.
Okay. So so it also be hacked with the DDoS application layer using the DDoS botnets. In 2017, the Betfinex suffered the massive DDoS attack. So it is especially inconvenient in the for the IOTA Foundation, which has on the platform the day before the Betfinex informed the users about the attack. 3 years later, in February 2020, it has been experienced another DDoS attack, just a day before the OKEX cryptocurrency was exchanged. And it was noticed that a similar attack has happened. So later in the coming session, the transaction malleability attack, that is the resistance. So whatever resistance it has been happened, those resistance attack, it how much the system is flexible so that it can able to get the information, as well as it can able to make the trick to the victim for paying the amount as twice, so that I will get the amount as twice, but the records will say that you have paid only once, but amount will be deducted. So where I can play that particular trick? If my attacker's code is very much flexible, then obviously if the client's code is very much flexible, it will be easy for the attacker to incorporate his own code and get the information done. In the Bitcoin network, every transaction has a hash and the transaction ID. It will try to alter the transaction ID and broadcast the transaction with the changed hash, so that it can be confirmed before the original transaction happens. So the duplicate transaction will get the confirmation before the original transaction will get the confirmation. If the attacker has succeeded, then the sender will believe that that his personal transaction has been failed, but the funds will be released from the sender's account. Okay, so if sender will repeat this transaction again and again so that he can check it out, then the amount will be debited twice. This hack was successful once in 2 transactions, which were confirmed by the miners who are present in that particular network. In 2014, Mt. Gox, a Bitcoin exchange, went to bankrupt due to the malleability attack. Bitcoin seems to have solved the issue by introducing the segregated witness process, where the signatures of the data from the Bitcoin transactions are replaced with non-malleable hash commitment to each person. So next comes the time jacking. Session is there for you, for the participants. Okay, let me continue. Time jacking exploits a theoretical vulnerability in Bitcoin timestamp handling. During the time jacking, attacker will alter the network time of the node and forces the node to accept the alternative blockchain. This will be achieved when the malicious nodes exist in the network and create a multiple fake users. So this can be prevented by restricting the acceptance of time ranges. So next comes the routing attacks. Routing can impact individual nodes or the entire networks. It will hack to tamper the transactions by pushing them to the peers. It is nearly impossible for other nodes to detect the tampering. Hackers will divide the network into partitions that are unable to communicate with each other. Routing attacks actually consist of 2 separate attacks, that is the partition attack and the delay attack. Partition attack divides the network nodes into separate routes, then it will try to perform the route attack. One more is the delay attack, which will try to propagate the messages and send them to the network in a delayed format, like the messages will be delayed in the network. So next comes the Eclipse attack. It requires the hacker to control a large number of IP addresses and have a distributed botnet, which will override the addresses and try the table of the victim node and wait until the victim node is restarted. Once the victim node has restarted the system as he has seen some slowness in the connectivity, or there is some misleading in the system, then he will try to restart the system. Once he restarts, all the outgoing connections of the victim node will be directed to the attacker's IP address. Okay, so then it will make the victim to obtain the transactions they are interested in. So the Boston University has initiated the Eclipse attack on Ethereum network and managed to do it using just 1 or 2 machines. So next comes the long range attacks on proof of stake networks. So those who are using the proof of stake algorithms, consensus algorithms, then this long range attacks are very common in that. So these attacks are being classified into 3 types, that is simple, posterior corruption, and stake bleeding. So in the simple, the naive implementation of proof of stake protocol when nodes don't check the block timestamps. So the main concept over here is whoever misses the timestamps to check, the complete network will collapse. Okay, next, the posterior corruption, the mint more blocks than the main chain in the given time frame. They try to attempt to create more blocks than the main chain. How much main chain blocks are there, that they are not bothered, but they will try to create more chains. Okay, next comes the stake bleeding. Copying a transaction from the honestly maintained blockchain to a private blockchain maintained by the attacker. So it is like a duplicate one where you are just creating it and you are maintaining the honestly, the blockchain will be maintained to a private blockchain as if it is being maintained by the main person. The attacker will be maintaining those particular private blockchain, but it will be treated as if it is being maintained by the genuine user. So when you are conducting, when the long range attack has been conducted, the hackers will try to purchase the stolen private keys. Okay, so that they can use for validating the validations which have been used by in the previous in the past or in the previous transactions. The hackers will generate the alternative history of the transactions and increase the rewards based on the proof of stake validation. So user wallet attacks. So cyber security will go together like a salt and pepper until unless people interact with each other about it. So it is like user wallet credentials are the main target for the cyber criminals, right? That is true, because each and every person is very much interested in the finance rather than the any other information. If there is something which says that if you click on this you will get 100 rupees, people are ready to click, right? Many of them, they don't think of, and if 100 rupees, if 1 rupee is deducted from your account, no one will bother, they will just observe, but they don't go and fight with the bank. But if same thing happens for 30 days or same thing happens day by day, the amount got increased, definitely they will go and they will ask. So this is the tendency of the user. So same way the hackers will also able to take the amount in the same fashion. So the overview, the common wallet attacks over here is phishing attack and the dictionary attack. Next is the wallet theft. The wallet thefts are performed using the different methods like system hacking, phishing attack, installation of the buggy software, and incorrect usage of the wallet. There is no trusted third party which exists. So if a victim lost the private key, then the associated wallet will be lost. Then he won't able to recover his bitcoins from the network. So that's the reason, like it is the same example, whatever I have told, that suits over here. Out of 10, he has used the 8 for false keys. So the left out with the 2 keys where he will be a beggar or he will be a millionaire, right? There is no mechanism available for recovering the lost bitcoins. So this mechanism need to be developed. Till now there is no mechanism. If you develop, like if you are working on the research part, then you need to work on this mechanism. Phishing attack in 2018, it was discovered by the IOTA wallet, which was teased and fake online seed generator. With the help of the fake online seed generator, they have the attack was identified on the IOTA wallets. So hackers conducted a phishing campaign with this service and collected the logs and the secret seeds. In January 2018, the hackers successfully stole more than $4 million worth of the IOTA victims' wallets. Dictionary attacks. So during the attacks, attempts to break the victim's cryptographic hash and salt by trying the hash values of common passwords like password 1, password 2, and so on and so forth. So that's the reason we all say that you should not use the simple, very simple password. Some different passwords you need to use so that you can have the strong password for your emails, for your bank transactions, so on and so forth. So by translating the clear text passwords of the cryptographic hashes, the attackers can find the wallet credentials. So attacks on cold wallets, hot wallets, all these comes under the vulnerable signatures, flawed keys generations, all these will come under the user wallet attacks. So next comes the smart contract attacks. So Ethereum, Neo platforms, whoever is using for the smart contracts, they are vulnerable for the various attacks. Like the source code itself, they can include some kind of attacks in the network and they can make it vulnerable. The vulnerabilities in the virtual machines also will able to have a smart contracts attacks on the Ethereum based on the EVMs which have been commonly used for that is the immutable defects. So if the smart contract contains any bugs in its code, they are also impossible to fix. So cryptocurrency lost in transfer, bugs in the access control, short address attack. So these are the various attacks which are possible in the network. So these are the various threats which are possible: double spending threats, mining or pool threats, wallet threats, race attack, Finny attack, Vector 76 attack, 51% attack, selfish mining attack, block withholding attack, bribery attack, vulnerable signature, lack of control in the address creation, collision, and pre-image attack, flawed key generation, bugs, and malware. So next comes the resource usage. Are the participants available? Or everybody have slept? Anybody available? Am I audible to all?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
So people are available, right? I don't think so people are available. Because almost from 3 to 4 minutes, I have stopped my presentation. Even I have skipped 2 slides. I was just discussing, but there is no response from anyone.
Hello, ma'am. Hello. Hello, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Ma'am, we are mentioned in the chat, ma'am. The PPTs are not.
No, I didn't receive any chat.
Yeah, we are chatting, ma'am. It's in chat message. We
No, I
mentioned
didn't
that.
receive any chat message. If I would have received,
On the,
definitely I would have, uh, done it. There is no response from the participants.
we are listening, ma'am. We are listening, but we didn't visible that slide.
Anyways, now it is visible.
Ah, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, if you people are not interested, it's better to stop, right? So that's the reason I'm just, why to waste the energy? Anyways, it's 1 hour is done.
Ma'am, we are listening to
Okay.
bugs and malware attack. You're teaching the all the threats and attacks. We are listening continuously, ma'am. So don't mistake us.
No. I'm not mistaking anyone. It's like, it should not be like one way. Like I'm just making it like no one is responding. Even I asked one question in between. I didn't get any answer. So I just was like, okay, let me stop. Okay. Anyways, let me continue. Resource usage. See, blockchain technology will enable the worldwide network where every transaction is verified and the blockchain is kept in the sync among the multitude of the users. So it utilizes the proof of work, mainly publishes the nodes and expands the large amounts of processing time. So this is usage is nothing but this is also one kind of attack where it will try to make use of the resources which are available in the network, and it will not allow the genuine users to use the resources. So generally this concern is with the proof of work, where the proof of work will use more resources in order to finish one kind of work, right? So in order to solve the consensus algorithm, so when we are in order to solve the puzzles, we use the proof of work consensus model, so which will be used over here, and that will lead to the resource utilization attack. Next comes the inadequate block publishing rewards. So some blocks will say that if you solve this puzzle and if you get me this kind of information, I'm ready to pay $10, $20, so on, so forth. And some people who have genuinely solved the puzzle, they won't able to get the rewards. So in that way, it will be like we will able to differentiate that there is some inadequacy which has been maintained in the publishing of the rewards in the network. So this will become increasingly less attractive for the publishing nodes to contribute to the cryptocurrencies efforts. So they will feel that as we are not gaining any rewards, why to solve the puzzle? So let's leave the puzzle in the network. So they won't able to solve. They will just leave the network and they will try to jump to the another network. In that way, the whole network or the whole network which the transactions are need to be performed, they will be collapsing slowly. So this is the majority attack which we have discussed in the previous slides, saying that the one fake node will able to allow the another attackers into the network. 51% attack, this is the 51% you can think of. Once the node will gain the, let us say instead of this, these are the nodes. So this, once the node will gain the information, it will, once it has become the 51% node information, then it will try to include the fake nodes into the network. Okay, this is the this is like a majority attack where the slowly the main blocks will become the stake blocks and the fake blocks will become the main blocks. So stale blocks will become the main blocks who are in the network will become the stale blocks, that is they will be avoided in the network, and the fake blocks will become the main blocks in the network for the communication. So this is the double spending attack, which we have seen that once they will spend, they won't get the confirmation. Again, they try to spend the amount. So, but the person who is already has the information, they will only get the amount. So here you can see the person has paid the information, amount, but the confirmation of the transaction has been not yet received though. So payment cancelled due to the double of spending. Then what the buyers will do is they'll again send into the network. So Finery attack is nothing but it mines the block of the transaction T2 in a private blockchain and performs the T1 using the same Bitcoin with a seller. So once the seller accepts the transaction T1 after receiving the confirmation from the miners, T1 is valid and appended in the blockchain. After receiving the product from the seller, buyer will release the information and he will say that the blockchain forks have been created. You need to send the information. Once the block has been added to the fork chain, then the miners will consider the forked chain to add further blocks, where the stale blocks will main blocks will become the stale block and the fake blocks will become the main blocks. Okay, so the advisory can only perform the double spending in the presence of one confirmation sellers. Rest he cannot perform the operations. So brute force attack, everybody knows the brute force attack. What do you mean by brute force attack? So I'm not going with the definition, but over here the buyer has the control over some of the miners in the network, which they can collectively perform the private mining scheme. As like the Finery attack, the attacker can continuously work on the extending private blockchain, that the seller waits for the confirmations from the original blockchain to accept a transaction and sends the product to the network, to the end person in the network. So when the attacker can release the pre-mined number of blocks in the network to cause the fork chain longer than the original, then there is a possibility of double spending attack. So next comes the Vector 76 attack. What do you mean by Vector 76 attack? So over here, the malicious buyer will hold the pre-mined block of deposit transactions and wait for the announcement of the next block. Once he gets the confirmation, he will try to send the pre-mined blocks to the peers. So there is a possibility of the miners to consider the forked blockchain, which is due to the pre-mined block of the original. If the original block does not have the block of original chain does not have the block of the deposit transaction, then the deposit request will be invalidated. The withdrawal request will be validated, but there is no loss of coins in this attack. Only one time there will be loss of coins, but it can be recovered. So balance attack, it generally focuses on the delaying of the communications within the network. There is a trade-off between the communication delay and the mining power, which is required to make the double spend attack in the Ethereum with high probability. So the possibilities over here will make the miners to use the computational power than the other miners which are present. So over here, the attacker's mining pool has the higher computational power than the other, where the users will feel that the attacker miners who are present in the pool like a genuine miners. Okay, so the network delay, connectivity, and the ratio of number of honest miners are the affecting factors for the balance attack. Majority attack can also cause a double spending attack. So these are the mining pool of attacks. So each pool is governed by the pool manager, and this is generally, it provides the partial proof of work and full proof of work, what they are going to perform. The miners, that will be the main miner, the governed miner in the pool will able to see all the miners which are working in the pool and the manager will able to decide who have provided the half partial work, who has provided the full work in order to solve one puzzle. Based on that, the information general procedure that will be sent to the client and the rewards will be paid. But over here, this is the general procedure where when the mining pool attacks will happen, the pool manager will also get compromised. So the new block which has been forwarded by the full PPOW or FPOW, which will be broadcasted into the network by the miners, and the pool manager will get the Bitcoin. If the pool manager itself is a compromised one, then there is no point of distributing the rewards to the into the pool. So this is the effect of pool attacks which have happened. So these are the various different pool attacks which are generally they'll happen in the blockchain. So selfish mining. So this is what the block has not been found. Then this secret block has been created by the fork. By the fork, then slowly the main block will be avoided. When the new block has been created, people will nominate to go with the secret block rather than the original block. So block withholding attack. So when we are considering the pool member is not revealing the mined block, then it will submit the shares to the PPOWs. So the adversary can either make other pool members to lose or he can perform the selfish mining. Pool hopping attack is also almost within that particular pool it will be performed. Next, the bribery attack. So within the pool, the attacker will try to attract the other miners in the pool and make them to perform the negative actions in the network. That is, if I solve the puzzle, I'll get the plus amount, right? So instead of that, I should ask the another member of that particular pool to send the false information to the next miner. In that way, I'm going to damage the whole pooling process. So I'm going to say that if you are going to send the wrong information, I'm ready to pay you the amount. So next one is blacklisting through punitive forking. So over here, once the Alice has more than 50% of the network hash rate, then he can refuse to work on the blockchain. So this is how it will work. So Alice will create a block. So this is the normal block which has been distributed to the Alice and the Bob. So once the Alice has entered with the one block, so it will start generating the blocks and it will send. So again and again it will continuously generate and it will send to the Bob. And once the Bob has accepted, it will again the acceptance of the block by the Alice will be less. Alice will start creating one more block, continuous block, so that although Bob is a genuine one, it will at the last stage it will treat the Bob as a malicious one and it will stop sending the information to the Bob, and it will, as there is a concept in the blockchain that it has to follow the largest chain in the network, right? So as per the rule, when it goes till here, it will observe that there is no continuation of the network, so it will simply avoid this chain and it will go with the largest chain. So this is the blacklisting through the punitive. So Bob has been blacklisted in the network using the punitive forking by the Alice. Continuously, again and again, it is going to create. Feather forking is nothing but the hash rate will announce that whether she can fork in the network or not. Okay, so Alice will fork the blockchain and continues to fork herself until she wins the challenge. So this is like morning I've told you for the consensus algorithm that it will send the messages again and again to from the BJP, from the Congress, from this MLA, from that MLA, so on so forth, until unless the petition will get sanctioned, right? So in that same way, this is called as feather forking attack. In this way, the attacker may lose some of the rewards, but he will have the complete transaction in its control, and later one time it will lose the amount, but next, and it will start gaining the rewards. So how to set up the Bitcoin? You can just go to this particular website, build the tiniest blockchain, Flyman, learn blockchains by building one by one, build your own blockchain from the Python. These are the references. Any doubts which you have, you can just ask. So
Participants, if you have any doubts, you can ask now.
Why forking is named for attacks actually? Because normally forking is used for creating another chain for Bitcoin where
yes,
it becomes
sir.
a different currency, you know.
Forking actually used for creation of the currencies, and I mean the longest chain. Over here, if only one person is going to continuously create a fork chain, then obviously it will the attacker he is allowing his own teammates to enter into the network.
No, forking is used for something other than that. No, like see, Bitcoin has upgraded the software in a big way, and only certain nodes took it, and the remaining okay, some 30% of the nodes took it, and the changes. The other 70% of the nodes didn't take the changes. Okay, so totally it becomes a different set. No, now. So then a different Bitcoin transaction gets created. Is not by the people who have changed updated their code.
Yes, sir. That is also a kind of attack. That's what I have informed in the PPT.
That is not a kind of an attack. It is it's an upgrade to the system, no, which others don't want to take.
If it is agreed to the system, it is there. But there is a traitor who is present, and he is going to develop, and he is making the blacklisting the genuine one. Then it is called as an attack, or else it is not called as an attack.
Yeah, there might be in your terms it's legal forking. The other one is okay because it creates a separate different cryptocurrency itself.
Yes,
because in Bitcoin it has happened, and nearly 2 other Bitcoins are there. Okay.
No, that absolutely true. Whatever you're saying is true. But if it is a legal one, everybody accepts with that. But if it is an illegal one, then obviously it is like your genuine users you're blacklisting, and you're allowing the other people to continue that fork. So in that way, it will make the genuine users to get the negative marking, and the illegal people illegal nodes which are going to enter into the network will become the legal nodes. So that will disrupt the network after some time, not immediately.
I understand. Okay.
Yeah.
So whether you'll give your PPTs also, or you can convert to what?
If you want PPTs, I'll give it, sir. No problem.
Oh, okay. Because I was not in the class for nearly 45 minutes because I have to attend some other things. So.
Okay, no problem. I'll share. I'll send it to the coordinator. Okay.
Yeah. Both PPTs in the morning.
Yes, definitely. Any other questions or any feedbacks? Like how? I mean, as a faculty, genuine feedbacks I want, because I'll be teaching the students also the same subject. So, but in a different manner. For the students, we should go into a low level thing. So overall, how was it? Can one or two people can give the feedback for the morning session and the session, whatever happened now, so that it will improve myself. It will help me to improve, not for the others. Okay. Anyone to give the feedback or no feedbacks?
So, okay, whatever I noticed is you have collected a lot of detailed information, and your presentation was really good. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello, ma'am. Ma'am,
Yeah,
can
yeah.
you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Ma'am, this session is very informative, ma'am. I have get more informations about attacks because before that I have a knowledge only 50% of which is conveying by you. I have only knowledge about 50% of attacks, but now I think 90 more than 90% of knowledge in what are the attacks mentioned in occur in blockchain.
Okay.
And I have one doubt, ma'am.
Yes, definitely.
Which is most vulnerable attack for an Ethereum platform?
The proof of work attacks are the more vulnerable for the Ethereum, in short. So because Ethereum uses the proof of work concept, and when you go with that, obviously, definitely you have the 51% risk of with the proof of work concept, right? So that
Okay.
will exist with the Ethereum also. In general, I can say is whatever the attacks we have discussed with respect to the proof of work, they all exist with the Ethereum.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. What about the DAO attack? Do you know?
What is it, ma'am?
DAO attack.
DAO.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you abbreviate it, ma'am?
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah. So you mean to ask about the decentralized autonomous
Yes, ma'am.
organization
Yes,
which
ma'am.
exists with the blockchain?
Yes, ma'am.
So they have some rules which are encoded, ma'am. And the
Okay.
contract, whatever they are going to write, based on those set of rules only for a particular organizations, each and every node which is involved with that, they have to follow those particular rules.
Oh, attacker made the rules, isn't it, ma'am?
What?
Attacker only made the rules in smart contract, isn't it?
No, ma'am.
Uh,
Attacker won't make the rules, but if he is the owner of the organization in the decentralized organization, then obviously he is the member who is going to create all the fake rules, and he is the one who is going to gain the information from the others.
okay, ma'am. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. It completely depends in the network that who is having the authority and how many nodes are involved and what kind of nodes are being involved.
Yeah. Any other doubts? Yeah. If there are no doubts, madam, thank you very much for sparing your time. I think the whole day.
Thank you so much, sir, for giving the opportunity.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah. Sorry, ma'am. Hello.
I'm sharing the information to the people, but I'm not sure whether people have got the enough information or still they require some more information. I'm not sure. Whatever they expected, that much level I have reached or not, I'm not sure. But if they want some more information, they can mail me and they can get the information from me at any time. So
Sure.
yes, sir. Please share my mail ID with the participants, sir. If they
Sure.
want, they can definitely ask me, and I'm always there to reply back. Okay,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
very
much,
much.
sir. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
sir.
participants. Tomorrow we will meet again at 10 o'clock. It is on Ethereum hands-on session that you will have. And thank you. Be safe. Take care. we will meet tomorrow again. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.